Now it's time for us to meet Ahmed Al-Andawi. He is 36 years old from Jordan. He is the UN Envoy on Youth and also the youngest senior official in the history of the UN. He's a pretty cool guy. So, unfortunately, he couldn't be here with us, but he has sent us a video greeting. So, Ahmed, take it away.
Hello, my name is Ahmed Al-Hindawi, and I am the United Nations Secretary General's Envoy on Youth. I support first-generation campaigns' efforts to drive the achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals through the empowerment of young people. Today's generation of young people is the largest in history, which means that young people are not just the beneficiaries of the SDGs, but rather they hold the key to the success. This is why I'm especially encouraged by the first generation campaign's focus on teachers and educators. Teachers have a unique opportunity to instill the importance of the sustainability from a young age, to cultivate and enable younger generation to serve as change makers in their schools and communities. So together, let's embrace this challenge and tell everyone about the global goals. And together, let's work both for and with young people to take on development challenges. Then together, we can build a planet that is more peaceful, prosperous, and just for all.
Thank you, Ahmed Al-Andawi. So it's time for us to hear from some of our inspirational figures. Like I said earlier, we have 18 guests in the audience today from all across the globe, different ages, different nationalities, who have joined us today to give examples on how to raise awareness and how to engage in the global goals. 5 of them are going to join me on stage now. We're going to hear from each one of them about their projects, and please feel free to ask questions yourself. I know, like, we're in Sweden, that's not our favorite thing to do, but if you think of anything, just pop your hand in the air and I'll give you time to ask your questions. And if you feel insecure about your English, ask in Swedish and I'll do my best to translate. So, give a warm welcome to Lucas Mora Maximo, Alson Kielen, Matali Okalik, Prudencia George, and Isaac Utsi. Hi everyone. How are we today?
Fine.
Fine.
We good?
Very good.
Really good.
Is everybody's sound getting out in the audience?
Hello. Hello.
Hey. Hi everyone.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear him? Yeah. Good. Perfect. So Alson, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, good.
You're from the Marshall Islands.
Marshall Islands.
Yes, and that's a long way from Sweden.
34 hours from here.
34 hours?
Yep.
What did you do on the plane?
Sleep. I watch a lot of movies.
Have any movie tips?
I watch the Star Wars and... But in between, when I changed flights, I was on Facebook a lot, so that was good.
Love Facebook. You can add me later.
Connect with the world.
So over here in Sweden, we can't really tell that climate changes are affecting the world. But you're from the Marshall Islands, and that's a completely different reality. Will you tell us about that, please?
Well, it's a totally different world. First of all, Marshall Islands is about 180 1,156 small islands scattered in a vast ocean of 700 square miles. And it's all small islands. And you don't see it here, but back home, it's really affecting our daily life. The ocean, the same ocean that we're protecting and is giving us all the resources, it's the same ocean that is eating up our islands. So the islands are getting eroded away. There are some islands that were livable, but now they're getting smaller and smaller, and people are moving. So a lot of people are migrating from places to places because of the effect of the erosion. And not only that, but we have no mountains. So we depend on rainwater for drinking. And we also depend on a very thin water lens under our grounds. So changes in weather, the droughts, it goes for 6 months. Without the rainwater, we have to depend on our machines, which people from outside the marsh will bring to help us out. And the water is the same water lens that we used to depend on. It's getting less and thinner, which means us human beings, we have hard time to find water. And at the same time, the food trees that actually feed us, who depend on the water lens, are also dying. So I am coming from a canoe program. So my program also depends on the trees that depend on the water. So that's the picture that we're facing every day.
And you've sent us a movie clip from the Marshall Islands. Let's watch that one. Alson, from the perspective of the Marshall Islands, what do you see are the biggest challenges to overcome?
Well, there's a lot of challenges when you talk climate change, but there are also, we also have to step in and make a huge difference in this world, work together. And I already talked about challenges, the weather and all that, but I think the important thing is what do you do when you see challenges? Our country is the smallest island nation that has been fighting, since the Paris. I was actually in Paris for COP21 for the ambitious 1.5 climate efforts. So, and it's gradually moving toward that way, and that's the international front. But in the national front, we are trying to educate our people more and more rapidly, include climate change in our curriculums. Just 2 weeks ago, the government they approved a bill to ban import of plastic bags, foam cups, and plastic plates to make sure that we protect the same ocean that is giving us the resource to live.
But that's for the Marshall Islands. What can the rest of the world do?
I think the rest of the world can look at the Marshall Islands and say, well, what can we do to help them? Because if the world helped us, they automatically help the world.
Do we have an audience question for Alson? Anyone? somebody in the back. I can't really see. Längst bak där borta. You're so politely quiet.
So I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Yes.
No. Okay. Well, what do you see as the next step going forward? What is your next step in this battle?
Well, I'm running the program, as you saw it earlier, and I think I'm doing a great job because we started out as a traditional culture program. Now it's been expanding to where we're part of the government. We're helping the government to come up with ideas. We say canoe, the world say canoe, but we look at it as a way of transporting. I mentioned earlier, we are a small island nation. We have so many islands within the Marshalls. And transport is a very important daily needs. But again, transport is, in order to have those transport, we need fossil fuel. But we need to put them on the ground to make sure they don't come out of the ground. So we're using our traditional skills to come up with sustainable sea transport for us, for our country. And by doing that, there are other island nations around the world. We can share the ideas and just kind of move it all the way to the bigger countries to help us out so we can help each other out and help the world. And I always say that, we need to respect Mother Nature. Of course, if it was our own mother, we respect very much. So let's respect Mother Nature as if it was our own mother.
Thank you, Elsa. Matali, I'm going to turn to you now. Welcome. You're from Canada.
Yes.
Inuit. Please tell us about your culture as an Inuit.
Sure. Thank you for that question. Unusakut, good afternoon, everyone. Matali anirak ukaliuyunga, panoktumut sayauyunga, kisiani mana ikalumutauyunga. My name is Matilda Anirak Ukalik, and I'm originally from Panuktuk, Nunavut, which is in the Arctic of Canada, and I live and work in our capital city, which is Iqaluit. Just to give you a bit of a background before the questions start coming in, there are 160,000 Inuit across the world, and 60,000 in Canada alone. As you can see on the map behind me, we have 4 regions whereby Inuit had to mobilize within the colonial structure to negotiate land claims so that we can live in our place of home, continue to strengthen our language and culture and practices within the colonial structure of Canada. So we have lived and survived off Inuit Nunangat, our homeland, the land itself, the water, and the sea ice for thousands of years. But in the interest of Canada, as well as environment during World War II, Canada wanted to claim sovereignty to the Arctic and relocated our people very strategically, as you can see on the map behind me. So we assert sovereignty over 50% of Canada's landmass and waters, but geopolitically, unfortunately, we do not have the same standard and quality of life as our fellow Canadians. Although we do live within a developed nation, we do live in underdeveloped conditions, unfortunately. And so I have the opportunity to share that with you today. However, despite the negative statistics, we see continued survival into today because we have a very strong and beautiful culture, and we're very proud to be Inuit.
Both you and Isak here are representatives of 2 minority groups, Inuit and the Sami people. But how destructive can the lack of knowledge be regarding these minority groups?
In Canada alone, I think it's very destructive not being aware of who we are, our recent history of relocation, of forced removal of children into residential schools. The last residential school in Canada actually closed in 1996, and the purpose of the residential school was strategic assimilation policy to kill the Inuk in the child. And we're still here. So those who sat in our House of Commons, in our Parliament in the 50s and 60s would be very disappointed with the fact that we continue to survive into today. But the problem with not understanding who we are, as well as our social realities, and I sit on number 10, which is the removal of inequities, and when decisions are made in Ottawa, which is the capital of the country, and there's a lack of knowledge about who we are and our realities, it's extremely problematic for the future, especially our generations. I have a few statistics to share with you, just to put it into perspective, because Canada does, on the global stage, pride itself on its human rights work, as well as claiming that the Indigenous population in Canada is part of the core of the identity of the country. But I don't understand when 39% of us who live in our homeland live in overcrowded homes versus 4% of our fellow Canadians. 29% of Inuit aged 26 to 64 in our homeland have a completion of high school versus 85% of our fellow Canadians. 70% of Inuit who live in our homelands don't have enough food to eat versus 8.3% of our fellow Canadians. And the number of physicians that we have access to per 100,000 people is 30 versus 119 of our fellow Canadians. And so although we do a great service for our country by asserting sovereignty and laying claim to that large amount of land, we aren't living the way our fellow Canadians are.
Do you remember a turning point of some kind when you actively decided to start working with these questions?
Sure. When I was a very young girl, I always questioned our status of affairs. We have the highest suicide rate in Canada. Our 4 regions vary from region to region in terms of the suicide rate, 5 to 25 times more than our fellow Canadians and 11 times the international average. And so when I would continually see Inuit dying by their own hand, I started to question why. And in doing my own research, it was based on the concerted effort of the federal government to assimilate our peoples in a short period of time. When I say that we were relocated, this wasn't hundreds of years ago. It was my grandparents' generation when my mom was a young girl that we were relocated. And that went from us living a nomadic lifestyle whereby we were at the highest level of self-determination as a people to today, within 3 generations. We were forced to move into homes and pay rent when we didn't have a cash economy. And so the relationship that men and women have in terms of our social structures had to change dramatically in that regard. And so while asking questions, I began to find some answers. But that information is not easily accessible, and it's not made available to the greater Canadian population or the international global community. And suicide is 100% preventable. How come we're dying at such high rates within a country that is known for its stature at the global stage? And so by asking those questions, I decided I had to do something about it. And that's why I'm very pleased to advocate on behalf of Inuit youth today.
We're very glad to have you here. Do we have questions in the audience for Matali? Over here.
Welcome to Sweden. My name is Aida Stransund from UNICEF of Sweden. So I have this question that Canada, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, these countries are the best countries for children as a word breaking. So I wanted to ask you, but in these countries we have as well so many problems for children. So when you come from the special place of Canada, what's the problem, the biggest problem for children that you have in Canada these days? And another question is that you wanted to try your best for remove inequality. So what do you want to do in future? Thank you.
Tak. Thank you for the warm welcome and for the questions. I think it's really important to start back with our status of affairs and our social inequities, because as Inuit, before children can even be born, there are a number of risk factors that we face on a day-to-day basis, which will hinder the child's experience in the womb on into becoming an elder. The whole experience as an individual is not necessarily a positive one. So not having enough food to eat will hinder your experience when you're going to school or your overall health. Living in an overcrowded home, at our last council meeting, it was indicated that it's very normal for 15 people to live in a 2-bedroom home. And these are homes that were built back when the relocations were starting as well. And so the fact that we have the highest rate of lower respiratory tract infections or tuberculosis, which is an eradicated disease in the developed world, we have that at a very high rate and it's on the rise. You can just imagine that just the basic needs will hinder your life experience. And so with everything working against you as a child and with no hope in the future, it may seem, it could be very easy to decide what's the point. So we have to equip our children with the necessary tools that they require in basic needs. There is a fiduciary trust and responsibility of the federal government to oversee their constituents. But also, not only in that regard, we have to continue to strengthen our relationship with our language and culture that was attempted to take away from us through attempted cultural genocide. And that will address the identity crisis that currently exists with our Inuit children and youth. In terms of your second question, what next steps do we take? Are you asking me as an individual or us as a people? Okay, sure. Reconciliation is definitely an important process that I see the future holding. I think that it's absolutely integral for the federal government to honor its fiduciary responsibility to Inuit, to implement the land claims agreements that they've signed with us, as you saw on the map, to remove the social inequities that we currently face. And more specifically, we have gone through more recently a truth and reconciliation process, which allowed Indigenous people in Canada to share their experience in the residential schools that they had. About 50% of Indigenous people who did go to residential school suffered abuse, whether it was physical or sexual or death. And so that really created some trauma, intense trauma within our communities with intergenerational effects. And so it's up to our generation to stop those negative cycles, make critical and conscious healthy choices as we raise our children and as we contribute actively into our local communities. So I would identify that as a priority, and the first generation process and the global goals is definitely a part of that solution.
Thank you. Lucas, or we can give her an applause. Lucas, I'm going to turn to you. I'm going to turn to you. Okay. You're here all the way from Brazil.
Yes.
And you are very engaged in sustainability and the global goals. Could you tell us about your work?
Yeah. First of all, it's an honor to be here, gathered with so many inspirational figures from all over the globe. I'm 20 years old, and I live in northeastern Brazil, the region that holds the lowest Human Development Index in the country. So that's why I take the Global Goals Agenda as a great opportunity for be a change maker in the reality of Brazil and in the reality of my region. Despite these problems, Brazil and northeastern region of Brazil has a lot of potentialities. So a considerable part of our population and young, and I think these young men and women should be active agents in development promotion. So since 2015, I've been developing some activities in my university. I'm an international relations student, and in an NGO, a youth-led NGO called Engajamundo. If we translate Engajamundo, we could say like engage the world. So we are a lobby and advocacy organization on issues like climate change, gender equality, sustainable urban development, and biodiversity. So basically, there's a video, I think, that can explain more of my activities.
Hello there, my name is Lucas Massimo, I'm 20 years old and I live in northeastern Brazil. As an international relations student and someone concerned with youth action, I conceive that the success of the SDGs highly depend on the power of networks to achieve change. In face of the importance of civil society engagement, I seek to be an agent of change, directing my action working towards two main activities. The first one is a research and community engagement project developed at my university. During the last months, in partnerships with UNDP, we were able to collaborate with training courses for political actors in some states of Brazilian Northeast, mobilizing more than 1,000 people and raising awareness on the importance of civil society participation to the implementation of the SDGs locally. The second activity is about Engajamundo, a youth-led organization dedicated to give rise to the voice of Brazilian youth in international and local political processes. The idea behind Engajamundo is to mobilize and engage young people in activism and advocacy on issues like climate change, gender equality, biodiversity, and urban sustainable development. As you may know, almost half of the world's population is under 25 years old. This means that we live in a context that youth empowerment is crucial to building a fair and sustainable future. So, the Global Goals Agenda is indeed an important commitment in face of the economic, social, and environmental challenges faced by Brazil and the world. But if sustainable development is to be realized, young people's involvement and solutions must be recognized and included at all levels of decision making.
Like you said in this movie, it is of high importance to involve young people in decision making and in the process. But do you have any advice on how to do that, how to engage youth?
Yeah, as you may realize, there isn't a unique way to be involved in this global commitment. So my advice would be that everyone interested in changing your reality through the SDGs agenda should be a good listener and open to learn with the other people's reality. So development is not like a cake recipe that you follow some steps and you reach success. My advice would be that you all should believe in the power of networks, as I told in the video, to achieve change, and be passionate about the activities that can engage the youth around you and can really change your reality. So basically, I think development this way.
And do you have any advice? Oh, I get the finger. Okay. Not that kind of finger, though. This finger. So, do we have a question from the audience before we move on? Anybody? Okay, thank you very much, Lucas. And good luck with the rest of your work. Prudencia?
Yes.
Welcome. You're from Tanzania.
Yes, thank you very much.
And I saw you picked number 5 about gender equality and women's rights to sit on.
Yeah.
How come?
Myself, I engage in sustainable development goals, particularly in Gender 5, gender equality, by inspiring the youth to work hard, especially the young girls, so that to have education, to know their rights, especially in Africa, women were put behind before. So for me, I'm inspiring them to work hard so that to reach their maximum potential and to fight to their own rights and to reach to their dreams. Because in African society, specifically in Tanzania, in rural areas, you may find that a child is forced to get married. Now that person has dreams. So if he's going to get married and she's not going to school, so it is a very bad thing. So all women in our society will still remain behind. So that is my inspiration to them.
We're going to watch your movie clip.
My name is Prudence George Malime. I'm a teacher by profession. I'm working at Barbara Johansson Model Girls Secondary School. I teach French, English, and Swahili languages. And also I'm the sports and social mistress and gender FEMA coordinator. I do engage young people in sustainable development goals by inspiring them to study hard, to work hard, so that to have education. As I believe education is the weapon to fight against all forms of exploitation, discrimination, and humiliation. Me and my girls, together we say, my body, my rights. Thank you very much.
So you are a teacher, you work with young people every day, but how do you work in involving them in gender equality questions?
As I said, I normally talk to them since we have a gender club in our school. And being a teacher, it means you teach them several ways to at least to protect themselves, because as they are girls, many boys are looking after them to destroy their life. So for me, I normally talk to them that the only thing to focus is education. You have to study hard. And when you go back to your society, you will educate your young so that to reach to a place where you can stand on your own.
Have you seen any progress?
Yes, I can see it. Yes, it is not like before. By now, at least, when you come to our country, many girls, many women now, they are capable of doing their things on their own. They are no more dependent than before. And they are not humiliated as it was before, though it is not yet ended.
No. And what kind of challenges do you have to overcome to finally see the finish line?
The challenge is we teach the girls and they understand, but when they go back to their families, the other parents do not give us support. Since they are eager to get bride price, they are forcing the girls to get married to the young stage, and therefore they are not coming back to school. And that person or that girl is no more having that courage of inspiring the other person, because since herself, she's nowhere. She's in the family, raising the kids, and maybe a big person who is elder than her. So I expect in future we might end this. Well, since we have seen the changes, but there is a bit challenges, but we expect, and I believe together we can, to eliminate all forms of humiliation and exploitation to the girls, and they will have education and they can stand on their own. For me, I believe education is everything to the girls, because for us women, we were not allowed to go to school. So only men were going to school, and you may find they have money, they are humiliating the women, then it was very bad. But we believe that this will end. Now this sustainable development goals, it is in the right way. So together we can, as I said, we'll do it, because I believe each and everything is, what should I call it? Each and everything is support and what should I say? It is support and encouragement and inspiration from other people around the world.
Do we have any questions from the audience to Prudencia? Yes, in the front.
We met before, so welcome again. I have this question that for activities that you do you receive some international help from Swedish Church or Red Cross or UNICEF?
Yeah, for me, I come from Barbara Johansson. First of all, the word Barbara Johansson is the name from Mama Barbro, who was a Swedish woman and who was an activist who helped the African girls to get education. So we got the sponsorship from Sweden since then, we started our school. So we do get, but for now, it is a bit.
And can you give us a picture of Tanzania, that which kind of organization that you received the help? And it's not private, as you said, so you can receive some international help from another countries.
Okay, we can start by our school, Barbara Johansson, and we can, if you are eager for that, we can communicate with my headmistress. For now, I cannot answer it because
of course.
Just like
so we speak about this because we wanted to help you and your project.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prudencia. Isaac, your turn.
Yeah.
You're from Luleå and Jokkmokk, right?
Yeah.
And you're writing your memoirs, or?
Yeah, I always do this, like writing pages and pages, and then I just throw it away when it starts. So I will put it down there.
Okay. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
Just like Matilda Marak, who will be performing later, you're a member of the Sami community. And what do you think is the biggest struggle for Sami people in Sweden?
There are a lot of struggles right now, but due to the fact that we're a people depending on land and water because of our traditional reindeer herding, for instance, or our handicraft or our culture, it's kind of based on the nature. So one big threat right now is the climate change, and that's why I picked this one, goal 13. And we have so much in common with, for instance, the Marshall Islands. Your islands are going to disappear, but few Swedes know that actually in the Arctic, if we reach the 2-degree goal in the world of heating, it will become 8 degrees up here in the north, in the Arctic. And we don't talk about that fact. We're also, we're not going to disappear in the same way as you, but we really need to start to talk about these issues that are actually so similar. And so, Sweden and the Marshall Islands have so much in common, and we really need to take this fight.
And how do we do that?
Whoa.
No pressure.
No pressure. Well, I think it like this. We're sitting here right now. We're in Stockholm. This conference. We're meeting each other. We're like spirits and good persons from 19 countries, and all of you here meeting, talking, discussing. I think it's really about meeting each other and get to know about our common. How should I say? Our common, that we have so much in common. These meetings are actually creating both networks and also this point of view in the world that you need to have to actually care for the rest of the world as well. You're not alone here in Sweden. You have to care about the Marshall Islands as well, and vice versa.
So what is sustainable development for you?
For me, sustainable development is a process where you actually hear and listen to all the voices that you have in the world, because, I mean, it's a threat. All these goals are, in one way, supporting each other, and in one way, they're a threat to each other. As the minister told us before, you can't fight, poverty. What do you say? Poverty. You can't fight poverty without caring for the climate, for instance, because then it's going to end anyway, the world. So it's to actually listen to all the voices and see that all these goals are connected, and you can't pick them like raisins from a cake. You need to see them all, and also realize that everyone can do something, at least.
Yeah, let's not make the world end.
Yeah.
That would be sad. Do we have any questions from the audience to Isak? A red shirt somewhere in the back.
Hi. I was just curious if you could explain a bit more. You mentioned that it will be even warmer up in the north, 8 degrees, but how would that affect your lifestyle? If you could give some examples. What is the threat you're facing?
Well, it's basically a goodbye to our culture and our future. That's it. And it's happening already now. It started to happen 10, 15, 20 years ago. And that's where we're going right now. And I mean, 1 week ago, I heard that we actually crossed the 400 ppm of carbon oxides in the atmosphere. So we're not likely to reach the 1.5 degree that we have right now. We're probably aiming at a 2 degrees goal. So, well, it's about our future. And I mean, it's like you say, we need to fight now.
We have a similar reality, and the three of us were in Paris at COP21 to share our realities about the impacts of climate change in our day-to-day life. And because the sea ice is degrading at such a fast pace, due to climate change, it's impacting our hunting. And we are still very much dependent on hunting and feeding our families with the food in which we hunt. But when the ice is melting faster, it implicates migration patterns and so on. And ultimately, as Isaac said, it's important that we're having this conversation as a global community, but it's also very important to take into consideration our indigenous rights, as well as our indigenous traditional knowledge. And although we were on the front lines in Paris urging for our rights and our knowledge to be taken seriously, because as Isaac said as well, and as our brother from the Marshall Islands had indicated, we've been talking about climate change for decades, but not taken seriously. And so when it comes to solutions, we have a lot of solutions that we have already been implementing in our homelands, as we're natural conservationists. Is that the word?
No,
I might be making up new words here, but I can pretend it's Inuktitut. But when it's not taken into serious consideration, then it's very difficult to be able to work together as a global community. And the Paris Agreement alone had indigenous rights and indigenous peoples' traditional knowledge only in the preamble as well as the annex, and not in the operative text. And so when nation states go back to their respective countries and identify the way in which they themselves will be implementing the Paris Agreement and addressing climate change domestically, where are we? And so in Canada alone, we haven't had the opportunity to participate with the different provinces and territories that have been working together to address climate change the way in which Canada will implement it. And so we're not at the table to help with that process, and you saw with your own eyes the landmass in which we cover.
Thank you, Isak.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for being here today and sharing your experiences.
Thank you as well.
You could put your goals back, if you please. So it's time for us to listen to Matilda Hellström. She is a UN representative for the National Council of Swedish Youth Organizations and a member of the Swedish UNESCO Council. And TCO put her both this year and last year on the list of the 99 most influential young leaders for the future. So when she's not busy changing the world, she drives the tractor and milks the cows on her family farm outside Skellefteå. So welcome, Matilda.
Everybody will be dancing and we're feeling it right. Everybody will be dancing and we're feeling it right. Everybody will be dancing and we're feeling alright. Everybody will be dancing tonight, doing it right. Everybody will be dancing and we're feeling it right. Everybody will be dancing and we're feeling it right. Everybody will be dancing and we're feeling alright. Everybody will be dancing tonight, doing it right. Everybody will be dancing and we're feeling it right. Everybody will be dancing and we're feeling it right. Everybody will be dancing and we're feeling alright. Everybody will be dancing tonight, doing it right.
Hello, everybody. I love the technique. It's always troubling. But now I'm here with this little fly on my cheek. As you heard, I'm from a small farm. I'm from basically in the middle of nowhere in the northern part of Sweden. I grew up on this small farm. And in this community where I grew up, getting involved in and questioning the society wasn't an obvious thing. What has led to where I am today is that I've met people who have believed in me, who have taught me about how society works and the importance of commitment. I remember my teacher in upper secondary school, Ingegerd. But she was a really amazing person, and she meant so much to me. And I'm thinking of her very often, actually. Ingegerd, she saw me. She said to me that, Matilda, you're important. And if you want to, you can develop the society to the better. And I remember when I met the student organization, Sweden's Student Council, Svea. Svea made me see that the school could be so much more. Svea gave me a vision of what the school could be like, and Svea gave me tools to see that if we do this and this and this and organize ourselves, the students, we can create a difference. Last year, I went to World Humanitarian Summit, Global Youth Consultation. Have you been there? Yeah? And also to UNESCO Youth Forum. And I really become struck by the fact that young people all around the world are excluded from the conversations, the very conversations that determined their lives and their futures. These conversations often happened around young people and not with young people. I think we all in this room can agree on that it's time to recognize the power of the voice of young people and the experience, the unique perspectives that young people have to offer that is so important to the development of the society. And it's really time to recognize the power of young people. Encouraging and engaging youth in policy and decision making is the foundation and really important to support young people. We are the first generation of the global goals world. we, the people of the United Nations. And we have a great responsibility. And honestly, it's a bit scary. To mention a few issues, we have to work to end poverty, to fight inequality and injustice, and stop climate changes. It's big issues. And it's important issues, because if we don't succeed with this, I can't even think about it, because it's a bit scary. So what can we do to face and work with this as young people? Because it's our problems, because we are the first generation in the global goals world. The answer, it involves, and it's not one simple answer, but something that can help us maybe answer the question or get some tools to work with this big work, is that it involves capturing the interest of young people and also making efforts when it comes to their education. Because let's face it, education is a key that can unlock doors and also cultivates human, social, and economic development. Education is a central goal to achieve a success with all the other goals, because education is the foundation that can make it possible for people of all backgrounds to make their lives what they want it to be and to make their voice heard. And also education expands the human minds and fills it with knowledge. And I think that's really amazing. Education is a tool to success. A few words about UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. It's a really cool organization. So if you haven't, you can always learn more. It's so cool. So go and look it up. That's one thing I want you to bring you home. But one thing about the education goal is that UNESCO has the key role in the implementation of this goal in the United Nations. However, a lot of young people are still not receiving the education that is needed to face all the challenges of today's society. The manner in which we approach education must therefore change and be adapted to a changing society. And more concrete, it requires national strategies to enable young people's involvement. It requires financing the youth organizations, and it requires local decision makers to invite and meet young people where they are. To end where we started, I hope that every young person around the world will have the same opportunities to succeed in life and have the same ability or the opportunity like I had to do this travel from where I was and where I am today. The essence of commitment, I think it is empowerment and self-determination. In large part, it's about having someone, meeting someone that believes in you and meets you where you are in life. I believe in young people. I believe in the first generation. And I believe that we can create a sustainable world together. We, the people of the United Nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.